What's good, YouTube? Today, we're back at it in another video where we'll be discussing the top 5 players with the most pressure this playoffs. We're about a game for each series into the playoffs so far. I just saw my Rockets get crushed by the Warriors. It was absolutely devastating. But, we're going to forget about that for now. Hoping for better hope game 2. But regardless, we're going to get straight into this video. And honorable mention, I just want to throw this off, off the rails real quick. I got Jayson Tatum, and he does have a lot of the pressure alleviated from last year, because last year he was sitting with a lot more pressure. Honestly, the entire Boston Celtics crew really had a tremendous amount of pressure last year. But with them winning that championship, it's not so much of that case anymore. But the only reason why I still have Tatum listed as an honorable mention is because a lot of people are giving him flag for not being able to get that Finals MVP. So, the Boston Celtics, they did have a historically good team. They really were, if we're going based off 2K ratings, right? Every single one of these guys were at least an 88 overall. The entire starting 5. So, yeah, they did have a kind of a super team to win that title, and then obviously Jaylen Brown got the Finals MVP. And a lot of people gave flag for Tatum in that scenario, because I don't know if y'all remember, bro, but when the Celtics won that championship, I was honestly rooting for my boy Jaylen Brown to get that Finals MVP. I thought it was well-deserved. But, bro, the camera kept panning straight to Tatum. I swear, for the 5 to 8 minutes, immediately after that final buzzer rang, all we saw was Deuce throwing up Tatum. And as you guys know, immediately following that, we did it! Dude, everybody in their mom thought Tatum was about to get that Finals MVP, the heist of the century, just right there. But obviously he didn't get it, and I think he does have that to prove. First of all, just reaching the Finals to begin with, and then if they win it, in that scenario, he does have to win Finals MVP. But he's an honorable mention because these guys are above him, really do have a lot more pressure than he does. So, yeah, let's get right into the list. Sitting in at number 5, I got Jimmy Butler from the Golden State Warriors. And why do I have Jimmy Butler up here? Well, it's because of all the drama and the animosity he basically made with the Miami Heat. He's going to be the person that the Warriors are looking to really take them to the next level. They drew an easier matchup than others against the Houston Rockets. To most people's eyes, the Rockets are going to bounce these folks, don't even worry about it. But Jimmy Butler, he does have a ton of pressure only because of the fact that the way he did leave Miami. It's kind of similar to that James Harden situation where, this guy wore a fat suit. So Jimmy Butler, this guy, he does have a ton of pressure going into these playoffs, because if the Warriors are bouncing the second round, then did they really even get any better? Last year they did miss the playoffs entirely. Klay Thompson went 0 for 10. But did the Warriors really get any better with the acquisition of Jimmy Butler? So far, they've been hooping. Jimmy Butler has just been playing tremendous this entire playoffs. But I do have him listed as number 5 because if the Warriors do get bounced in the second round, where do they really go from here? Jimmy was an aging star. He's He's damn near 35 now, and they're going to be paying him for the next 2 seasons right after this one. He's on a contract extension where he's getting paid, I think, a ridiculous amount of money. I think around $45 million a year. The Warriors are going to be stuck in a position where they might even be thinking about regretting doing that Jimmy Butler trade entirely if they do get bounced in the second round. So the Jimmy Butler and honestly Golden State Warriors in general, because they did go all in, they do have a ton of pressure in these playoffs. So not as much pressure as the guys above them, but I am going to put Jimmy Butler right at the 5. Next up, I got Donovan Mitchell. But honestly, bro, it's really just the Cleveland Cavaliers in general. Bro, you telling me you're going to get 64 wins and not make the Eastern Conference Finals at least? Bro, if we're going historically speaking, these guys have only made it to the second round. The Cavs have not had a deep playoff run since assembling this type of roster. And honestly, you could put Donovan Mitchell, you could even put Darius Garland. You could put anybody from the Cavaliers team in general are just sitting with a ton of pressure. You can't have this tremendous, historically great regular season and then go into the playoffs and not perform. Let me check real quick who they're gonna face if they do win this series, which they fucking will. They're gonna blow out the Miami Heat. But regardless, all right. So when they destroy the Miami Heat, I just checked, they're gonna be facing the Indianapolis Pacers or the Milwaukee Bucks. Bro, if they lose to the Pacers in the second round, this team will get absolutely clowned the entire offseason. And honestly, where do you even go from here? Are you going to run it back with the same squad that keeps, pretty much being the Joel Embiid? their team spirit animal is the Joel Embiid. You can't do that. You can't win 64 games and not go at least to the Eastern Conference Finals. And honestly, I would expect them to at least, their hopes should be the finals at the bare minimum with how good they were. I know they're probably going to go up against the Boston Celtics, but still, you have to beat that team. You can't just make it to the third round and then be happy with that. So, yes, they have a ton of pressure. So, yes, I got Donovan Mitchell, a.k.a. really the Cavs in general, with the number 4 spot. Next up, I got Giannis Antetokounmpo. And look, this is my boy right here, right? The freak. All right, the Greek freak. I like Giannis a lot. The reason why I have him up here, yes, he already is an NBA champion, well-established. He's a 2-time MVP. He robbed my boy James Harden once. And he's a Defensive Player of the Year. But the reason why I have Giannis up here is because he does catch a lot of flag for that one title he's won. A lot of people say that they got lucky that series. Kevin Durant's foot was on the line and that it might have been a fluke run. Now, I don't believe that myself. I think that if you are able to make it, win all 16 games, bro, you deserve it fully. Even the Raptors, when the Warriors would beat up, I give them full credit because you don't control what happens around you, especially when it comes to injuries. But in this case, it's more about just the circumstance with KD's foot being on the line. Look, regardless, my point is that Giannis has been a first-round exit 2 of the last playoffs. 2 of the last playoff series, Giannis has gotten bounced in the first round. And so far, he's down 1-0 to the Indianapolis Pacers. It's not looking good for them if they lose a third one. If anything, I think that reckons for a situation where Giannis probably leaves the team. What can you even really do from there? Like, Giannis is a player, I've talked about this before. Giannis is a player that he wants to win. That's why he plays. He doesn't want to be just a regular season top 3 MVP and then get bounced in the first round of the playoffs. Giannis, especially, I would honestly reword this to mostly saying the Bucks front office, they're at as much pressure as Giannis is. Because Giannis is already a well-established guy, but people are expecting high expectations from him. People are expecting him to turn into 2018 Bron. If this guy is a top 10, borderline top 10 player that people are calling him to be, or at least were for like the past 5 seasons. Even a few years ago, people were talking about Giannis is going to be an all-time great face of the NBA. If this guy is truly who people were setting him out to be, he needs to be able to go on a deep playoff run. I don't expect the Bucks to win a championship, but they need to at least not get bounced in the first round. That's where a lot of the pressure comes from. Their recent lack of playoff performance, playoff success. They need to go on a bit of a deep run. They need to give the Cavs trouble. One of these dudes is gonna get messed up. All right, one of these. If that series does happen, one of these dudes is gonna get messed up between the Cavs and the Bucks. Regardless, Giannis is sitting at the 3 spot. Up next, we got Mr. Aura Merchant himself. My whole life is consistent. You can't say your whole life is consistent and then get bounced in the second round. SGA is due, absolutely due for a finals run. The OKC Thunder, they're a historically good team, 68-win team. They need to make the finals. Their playoffs don't start until they're in the third round. Everybody expects OKC to make this absolute deep run. They're the betting favorites to win for good reason. OKC cannot get bounced around just like how they did against the Dallas Mavericks last year. And I think they will go on a very deep run. I honestly, if you were to ask me right now, they are my championship favorites. If I have to pick a team to win the title, I am going with the OKC Thunder. But that's a lot of pressure. You have a group of guys who last year in the playoffs, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, they folded. The lights were too bright. The lights were too bright. They could not really even play to their fullest capability last year, and that can't be the case. And it's going to go down all the blame on SGA. You can't be Mr. Aura. You can't be the MVP of the league and just get bounced in the second round. You can't have that be your legacy. OKC Thunder are due for a massive run. I know that's a lot of pressure on these guys, but that's what this video is about. This is a young group of players who have overachieved time in and time out, and they're expected to do it once more. Is it fair? I don't know, but they do have a ton of pressure, whether you like it or not. They have an expectation from everyone around the league, the media, the fans. OKC has to go on a deep run, and that's just the expectation of it. So that's why I have Shai listed as number 2. And really, this is another one where you could really base it down to the entire franchise. All the players of the Oklahoma City Thunder, they're due for a deep run. Coming in at the number 1 spot, I got, look, this is one of my boys, okay? I'm rooting for this guy. I mean it. I truly am. But I got Luka Doncic. I got Luka Doncic with having the most pressure this playoffs because of the circumstance. If you're the Dallas Mavericks, you traded away a guy that you could have kept contending with for at least the next 10 to 15 years for Anthony Davis, who you really shortened your window down to around maybe 2 to 3 years. It's known as the worst trade in NBA history. But if you're Luka Doncic, you have to go out there and show why it is the worst trade in NBA history. Everybody has this high expectation of Luka, I myself included, to be an all-time great player. But if you go out there, get bounced in the first round, Anthony Edwards is just storching you on offense, and you're seen as a defensive liability, like if defenders at this point are really getting Luka on them, and man, it's like it's their birthday. It's like it's cheesecake. Especially in that first game, you saw everybody was cooking Luka. You can't have that be your legacy. You can't have that stain on your resume of you just being a lackluster defensive player. You have to show effort. The big reason why the Dallas Mavericks didn't win in that finals was because Luka just looked flat out exhausted in the finals. He was giving it all on offense, which a lot of the shots weren't going in the finals. But on the defensive end, yeah, he did look bad. And there are ways to mitigate that, especially with the Los Angeles Lakers. You have guys like Vando. You have guys at Rui who can switch on these big bodies. But when Luka gets switched on, that becomes like the weakest link. Luka can't have that be his legacy. Luka has to show that he is an all-time great on offense and at least show effort on the defensive end, which I do think he has been doing in the regular season, but he has to flip that on in the playoffs. And based off of the first game we just saw, he didn't have that. He didn't have that it factor. He was just getting storched on defense. He needs to show why this was the worst trade in NBA history. Because if they get bounced in the first round, as crazy as it sounds, Nico Harrison does not look as stupid. And Nico Harrison's stupid. But Nico Harrison does not look as stupid as he did when this trade initially happened. And that'll be all for the video. Once again, if you like this type of content, make sure you go down, subscribe. I'm really new to this. I'm trying to make it consistent. I want to know what type of videos y'all are trying to see. So let me know whatever it is. Comment that down below. Like, all love, any type of love is much appreciated. I appreciate y'all. Take care.